There is a fatal mistake, a nearly invisible detail that most men make when they hug a woman without even realizing it. And in that tiny moment, her subconscious instantly decides, this man lacks real masculine energy. The craziest part, very few men on this entire planet actually know how to hug a woman the right way. Most guys are winging it, copying what they saw in movies or what their buddies do. And they have no idea they're killing attraction before they even open their mouth. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 deadly types of hugs that destroy chemistry instantly. I'll break down exactly what each one communicates to her subconscious mind. And then I'm going to reveal the 4th hug, the one almost nobody talks about. This 4th hug is what separates the men who stay burned into her memory for weeks from the men she forgets. Stick with me until the end, because this one detail will completely change how women respond to you. There was something missing, but I can't explain what it was. And when we explore those moments more closely, often the first physical interaction reveals everything. Sometimes it was a handshake that felt hesitant. Sometimes it was a hug that felt stiff or disconnected. Sometimes it was an overly aggressive embrace that immediately made her guard go up. That tiny moment, those 2 or 3 seconds, can quietly shape the emotional tone for everything that follows. Now, before we dive deeper, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had a hug from someone that instantly made you feel comfortable? Maybe it was a friend you hadn't seen in years. Maybe it was a family member who always makes you feel safe. Maybe it was a partner whose presence just feels calming. You probably didn't analyze why it felt good. You just felt it. And that's exactly how women experience physical presence too. If you're already starting to see how powerful these tiny details can be, do me a quick favor and tap the like button. It helps this conversation reach more people. And if you're someone who enjoys learning the psychology behind attraction and human behavior, make sure you subscribe. Every week, we explore another layer of connection. Now let's talk about the first mistake most men make when hugging a woman, the weak hug. You've probably experienced this one before. It's the hug where the arms barely touch. Your bodies stay far apart. The pressure is so light it feels like you're afraid of making contact. Sometimes it turns into the classic one-armed side hug, the kind where you quickly pat someone's shoulder like you're greeting a distant relative. On the surface, it seems polite, safe, respectful, but psychologically, something very different is being communicated. The emotional brain reads that hesitation as uncertainty. It senses that the person initiating the hug doesn't feel grounded, and uncertainty creates distance. Now I want to be very clear about something. Most men who give weak hugs are not trying to send that message. In fact, it usually comes from the opposite place. They're trying to be respectful, they don't want to invade personal space, they're afraid of making the other person uncomfortable. But here's the subtle paradox. When your body language communicates hesitation, it doesn't create comfort, it creates confusion. Because the nervous system senses mixed signals. Your words may say, "I'm happy to see you," but your body says, "I'm not sure if I'm allowed to be here." Let me share a real example. A woman once described going on a first date with a man she had been excited to meet. The conversation had flowed easily. When they finally met, he leaned in for a hug, but it lasted less than a second. His arms barely touched her, and he pulled back almost immediately. She didn't think that hug was weak. Instead, she simply felt something shift. Her excitement dropped slightly. The spark didn't ignite. That's how subtle these moments are. They don't always produce clear thoughts. They produce feelings, and feelings guide attraction more than logic ever will. Awareness is the first step. Think about the last few hugs you've given. Were you present? Next, we talk about the second mistake, the aggressive hug. If you knew that one sentence, just one, could make her heart race and her memory hold on to you long after the conversation ends, would you still waste your time with weak lines like, "You're hot"? Think about that, because the difference between a forgettable interaction and a moment she remembers months later is often nothing more than a single sentence spoken at the right time. Most men completely underestimate the power of their words. They believe attraction is built on appearance, money, or status alone. And while those things play a role, the truth, one that psychology has shown again and again, is that what people remember most is not what they saw, but how they felt in your presence. Maybe someone once said something to you years ago that still echoes in your mind today. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. Have you ever watched a woman's entire energy change because of something someone said? Her posture shifts, her eyes brighten, her smile appears almost instantly, and suddenly the atmosphere of the conversation feels completely different. That's the quiet power of intentional words. One thoughtful sentence can completely change the way someone sees you, not just for a moment, but sometimes for years. And today, we're going to explore something fascinating together: 8 compliments that go far beyond surface-level flattery. These are psychologically meaningful compliments. These are the kind that make a woman feel seen and respected on a deeper level. Now let's begin with something most people overlook completely: fragrance. Psychology tells us that of all the human senses, smell is the most directly connected to the brain's emotional and memory centers. Scent connects strongly to the limbic system, responsible for emotions and memories. That's why a single scent can instantly transport you back to another moment in time. Perhaps a summer evening years ago, a hug from someone you once loved. Scent has the strange ability to bypass logic and go straight to emotion. And that's why the simple compliment, "That fragrance you're wearing is addictive. It smells amazing," can have a surprisingly powerful impact. Because you're not just saying she smells good, you're telling her that her presence lingers in your mind even after she's gone. And that is an intoxicating idea. But here is the important detail many men miss. The way you say something matters far more than the sentence itself. Imagine 2 different scenarios. Imagine a crowded party. Music is playing, people are talking, you're meeting someone new, your mind is juggling 10 different things at once. So when the greeting hug happens, you rush through it. But here's the truth most people never realize. Presence is one of the most attractive qualities a human being can possess. When someone is fully present with you, really present, it creates a feeling that is rare in modern life. Think about the last time someone gave you their full attention. No phone, no distractions, no scanning the room, just calm, grounded attention. It feels powerful, doesn't it? Almost magnetic. That's because presence signals emotional confidence. It tells the nervous system, "I'm comfortable here, I'm not rushing, I'm not seeking approval from the room, I'm simply here with you." And when that presence is missing, even during a small moment like a hug, the emotional brain notices. I once spoke with a woman who described reconnecting with an old friend she hadn't seen in years. When they greeted each other, he gave her a quick hug. But while doing so, he looked over her shoulder and waved at someone else across the room. Technically, the hug happened, but emotionally, she felt invisible. She laughed about it later, but she also admitted something interesting. In that moment, she felt like an afterthought. That's the ghost hug. It's not weak. It's not aggressive. It's empty. And emptiness is surprisingly powerful when it comes to attraction, because connection cannot exist where attention is absent. Now here's the good news. Once you become aware of this, it's incredibly easy to change. All it requires is one simple shift. Slow down. When you greet someone with a hug, give the moment your full attention, just for those few seconds. You'd be amazed how much emotional impact that creates. And this brings us to the 4th type of hug, the one almost nobody teaches, but the one that changes everything: the grounded masculine hug. Now, when I use the word masculine, I'm not talking about dominance or force. I'm talking about grounded presence, the kind of calm confidence that allows other people to relax around you. A grounded hug begins before your arms even move. It starts with your posture. Your feet are planted firmly on the ground. Your shoulders are relaxed. Your breathing is steady. Your body is calm. This may sound simple, but the nervous system reads stability instantly. When your body is relaxed and grounded, the person hugging you feels it subconsciously. Your energy says, "There's no rush. This moment is safe." Now, as you step in for the hug, your movement is natural and unforced. You don't hesitate, but you also don't lunge forward. Your arms wrap around her comfortably, one hand resting naturally between the shoulder blades, the other around the upper back. Not gripping, not squeezing, just steady contact. Your chest stays open, your posture stays relaxed. And here is the detail almost no one talks about: breathing. Most people hold their breath when they hug. They tense up without realizing it. But breathing slowly during physical contact sends a powerful signal to the nervous system. Calmness, safety, relaxation. Our bodies naturally synchronize with the people around us. Psychologists call this nervous system regulation. When one person is calm and grounded, the other person's body often begins to mirror that state. So when you hug someone while breathing slowly and naturally, you create a subtle ripple effect. Her nervous system relaxes too. This is one of the reasons some hugs feel instantly comforting while others feel awkward. It's not technique, it's emotional regulation. Now let's talk about timing. One of the most common questions people ask is, how long should a hug last? The sweet spot is usually between 2 and 4 seconds, long enough for the emotional brain to register warmth and presence, but not so long that it becomes awkward. Think of it like a pause in a conversation, just enough space for the moment to breathe. Then comes the ending, and believe it or not, the way a hug ends can be just as important as the way it begins. When the hug finishes, don't abruptly drop your arms and step away like you touched a hot stove. Instead, release slowly. Let your hands slide naturally down her arms as you create a little space. Look her in the eyes for a moment, smile, let the energy of the moment settle. Those tiny details communicate something powerful. They say, I'm comfortable here. And comfort is contagious. Now something fascinating happens when men start applying this kind of awareness. Interactions change, not because they are using a technique, but because their presence feels different. Women respond to energy far more than scripted behavior. When your body language communicates calm confidence, people relax around you. And when people feel relaxed, connection becomes much easier. If you're finding this helpful so far, go ahead and tap the like button. It helps more people discover conversations like this and keeps this channel growing, and I'd love to hear from you. Which of the 3 mistakes do you think you've made most often? The weak hug, the aggressive hug, or the ghost hug? Be honest in the comments. There's no judgment here, because awareness is where growth begins. Now I want to share something important that goes deeper than just hugging. These principles apply to every interaction you have: handshakes, conversations, eye contact, the way you stand when someone speaks to you. All of these moments send signals to the emotional brain. And the more present and grounded you become, the more powerful those signals become. But here's something even more interesting. There is a subtle psychological trigger that happens right after a powerful hug. Something that can make a woman remember you long after the interaction ends. It has nothing to do with what you say, and almost nobody talks about it. We're going to explore that next, because when you understand this final layer, you'll begin to see how small emotional moments can leave surprisingly lasting impressions. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's a moment that happens right after a hug that most people rush past without ever noticing it. But psychologically, it can be one of the most powerful parts of the entire interaction. It's the moment of separation, the split second after your arms release and your bodies move apart. Most men rush through this moment. They hug, pull away quickly, and immediately start talking. Or worse, they look down, glance at their phone, or scan the room as if the moment never really mattered. But here's the fascinating truth. The human brain remembers emotional peaks and emotional endings far more vividly than the middle of an experience. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as the peak-end rule. What this means in simple terms is that people often remember 2 things most strongly: the most emotionally intense part of an interaction, and how that interaction ends. So, when a hug ends abruptly or awkwardly, the emotional brain registers that ending. And that memory becomes part of the overall impression you leave behind. But when the ending is calm, confident, and grounded, something very different happens. Connection lingers. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine greeting someone you're excited to see. You hug, your posture is relaxed, your breathing is steady, you're fully present for those few seconds. Then as the hug ends, you step back slowly. Your hands release naturally. You meet her eyes, you smile, and you hold that eye contact for just a brief moment before continuing the conversation. That moment may only last 1 second, but emotionally it carries a surprising amount of weight, because eye contact after physical contact creates a feeling of acknowledgement. It says without words, I see you, I'm here with you, I'm comfortable in this moment, and those signals create emotional warmth. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever hugged someone and then immediately felt a strange awkwardness afterward? Maybe you weren't sure where to look. Maybe you didn't know what to say. Maybe the conversation felt slightly forced for a moment. That awkwardness usually comes from rushing past the transition between physical contact and verbal interaction. Our brains need a tiny pause to recalibrate. When you give that pause, even for a second, everything feels smoother. The energy flows naturally. Now I want to share a small story that illustrates this beautifully. A woman once told me about meeting a man at a mutual friend's gathering. She didn't know him before that evening. When they were introduced, he greeted her with a hug. Nothing dramatic, nothing theatrical, just a calm, grounded hug. But when they separated, he looked her in the eyes and smiled warmly for a moment before saying, "It's really nice to meet you." She told me something interesting afterward. She said, "I don't know why, but I immediately felt comfortable around him." That's the power of presence. Not tricks, not lines, not complicated strategies. Just awareness and calm confidence. And here's the part most men never realize. These small moments accumulate. One grounded hug, one moment of eye contact, one relaxed smile. Each one adds a tiny layer to the emotional experience someone has around you. Over time, those layers build a feeling, and attraction often grows from that feeling rather than from anything dramatic. Now I want to give you a simple exercise you can practice starting today. It's something psychologists sometimes call intentional presence. The next time you greet someone with a hug, whether it's a date, a friend, or even a family member, try this. Before stepping forward, take one slow breath. Relax your shoulders, let your body settle, then hug naturally, not rushed, not forced, just present. During the hug, take one relaxed breath, and when you release, pause for a brief moment before speaking. That's it. It's incredibly simple, but the emotional impact can be profound, because what you're really practicing is awareness of the moment, and people feel that. In fact, many women describe something very interesting when they interact with men who have this kind of presence. They say things like, "I feel calm around him. Being near him feels easy. He has a very grounding energy." Notice that none of those descriptions mention physical appearance or status. They describe emotional experience. And emotional experience is what creates lasting attraction. Now, I want to address an important question that sometimes comes up. What if she's not comfortable hugging? That's a very real possibility, especially in professional settings or when meeting someone for the first time. Respecting that boundary is part of emotional intelligence. If someone offers a handshake instead of a hug, simply meet them where they are. The same principles still apply. Presence, calmness, eye contact, warmth. A handshake delivered with genuine presence can feel just as powerful as a hug, because again, the real signal is not the physical gesture, it's the emotional energy behind it. And when people feel respected and comfortable, trust begins to grow. Trust is the foundation of every meaningful connection. Now here's something fascinating. When men begin practicing presence like this, something else changes too. They start feeling more confident in their own bodies. Not because they are trying to project confidence, but because they are no longer fighting the moment. They're simply inhabiting it. And that internal shift affects everything. Your voice becomes calmer. Your movements become smoother. Your eye contact becomes more natural. Your conversations flow more easily. In other words, one small change in awareness begins to ripple outward into many areas of your interactions. If you're starting to see how powerful these subtle shifts can be, go ahead and tap the like button. It helps more people discover this kind of conversation and keeps the channel growing. And if you've ever had a hug that made you instantly feel relaxed or connected, I'd love to hear about it. Share that experience in the comments. Those real-life moments teach us more than any theory ever could. Now, before we move toward the final part of this conversation, there's one more layer we need to talk about. It's something that separates people who leave lasting impressions from those who fade quickly from memory. And surprisingly, it has very little to do with physical touch itself. It has everything to do with emotional consistency, because one powerful hug can create a spark, but consistent emotional presence is what keeps that spark alive. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. Emotional consistency is one of the most underrated forces in human attraction. A powerful hug can create a spark. It can open the door to connection. It can plant a memory in someone's mind that lingers longer than expected. But what truly leaves a lasting impression is the feeling that the person you just met is the same person in every moment that follows. Calm when speaking, present when listening, grounded when touching, warm when connecting. When those qualities stay consistent, something remarkable happens in the human brain. Trust begins to grow, and trust is the quiet foundation beneath every meaningful relationship. Now let me explain why this matters so much. Human beings are constantly scanning for emotional stability. Our nervous systems evolved to detect whether someone's energy feels predictable or chaotic. If a man gives a confident, grounded hug, but then spends the next 10 minutes fidgeting nervously, checking his phone, or avoiding eye contact, the brain receives mixed signals, and mixed signals create uncertainty. But when your presence remains steady, when your body language, voice, and attention all communicate the same calm energy, the emotional brain relaxes. That relaxation creates openness, and openness is where attraction begins to breathe. Think about people in your life who naturally draw others toward them. They usually aren't the loudest people in the room. They're not always the most conventionally attractive, but they have a quiet steadiness. When they speak to you, you feel like you're the only person in the room. When they laugh, it feels genuine. When they hug you, it feels warm and real. That kind of presence is incredibly powerful because it's rare. In a world full of distractions, someone who is fully present stands out immediately. Now, here's something I want you to remember. None of what we're talking about requires you to become someone you're not. It's not about performing masculinity. It's not about copying a script. It's about removing the tension and hesitation that often block your natural presence. When you relax into the moment, your authenticity becomes visible, and authenticity is magnetic. Let's walk through a simple, real-life scenario to bring all of this together. Imagine you're meeting someone for coffee. You arrive at the cafe a few minutes early. You take a moment to breathe, settle, and look around the space. When she walks in, you stand up to greet her. You smile. Your shoulders are relaxed. You step forward naturally and open your arms for a hug. The hug itself is calm and grounded, not weak, not aggressive, not distracted. You're fully present. 2 or 3 seconds pass. Then you release slowly, meet her eyes, and say something simple like, "It's really good to see you." That's it. Nothing complicated. But in those few seconds, several important emotional signals have already been communicated. Confidence, warmth, presence, respect, stability. Those signals create the emotional atmosphere for everything that follows. Now the conversation begins from a place of comfort instead of tension. She feels relaxed, you feel relaxed, and connection becomes much easier. Many men underestimate the power of these first few moments because they're focused on what to say, but emotional impressions often form before the conversation even begins. Now let me ask you something. How many times in your life have you walked away from an interaction and thought, "I wish I had been a little more relaxed. I wish I hadn't overthought that moment. I wish I had just been present." The truth is, almost everyone experiences that feeling at some point. But the good news is that presence is a skill. And like any skill, It improves with awareness and practice. You don't need to be perfect. You simply need to start noticing. Notice your breathing. Notice your posture. Notice when your mind starts racing ahead instead of staying in the moment. Each time you bring your attention back, you strengthen your ability to connect. And over time, those small adjustments create a very different experience for the people around you. Now, I want to share something encouraging with you. The fact that you've watched this conversation all the way to this point already says something important about you. It means you care about understanding people, you care about improving yourself, you care about creating better interactions rather than drifting through life on autopilot. That mindset alone puts you ahead of many people who never stop to examine these details. So here's my invitation to you. Over the next few days, practice what we talked about. Not in a forced or exaggerated way, just gently. When you greet someone, slow down for a moment, relax your shoulders, take one calm breath, be present for the interaction. Notice how it feels. Notice how the other person responds. You may find that the smallest adjustments create the biggest differences, and when you start seeing those differences, it becomes a very rewarding process. Now, before we finish today, I'd love to hear from you. Which of the 3 mistakes do you think you've been making most often? The weak hug, the aggressive hug, or the ghost hug? Be honest in the comments. This community grows stronger when people share real experiences and learn from each other. And if this conversation helped you see human interaction in a new way, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. That support helps this message reach more people who want to grow emotionally and build stronger connections. Every week here on Mindful Senior Living, we explore the psychology of relationships, communication, and emotional intelligence in a deeper, more thoughtful way. Next week, we're going to talk about another subtle signal that women notice within seconds of meeting a man, something that can quietly shift someone from the friend zone into a place of genuine curiosity and attraction. It's a small behavioral cue that most people overlook, but once you understand it, you'll start seeing it everywhere. So make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications so you don't miss that conversation. For now, remember this. Connection doesn't come from perfect words. It comes from presence, from calm energy, from the feeling that when you're with someone, you are truly there. And sometimes, that entire message can be communicated in just a few seconds, through something as simple as a hug. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Take care of yourselves. Keep growing, keep showing up with intention, and I'll see you in the next video.